Hello everyone, my name is Elijah David Best in the 12th hour Apostolic Sabbatarian Congregation Mount Zion at the 12th hour in Liberty Hill, Texas. Today is August 29, 2013, or it is the 23rd day of Elul 2017. We're going to start our first service today with a song entitled, I Believe in a Hill Called Mount Calvary. There are things as we travel this earth's shifting side that transcend all the reason of mind. But the thing that matters the most in this world, they can never be held in our I believe in a hill called Mount Calvary. I believe whatever the cost, and when time has surrendered and time is no more, I'll still cling to that old rugged I believe that Joshua was slain on that cross has the power to change lives today. Oh, it changed me completely, and your life is mine. That is why on the cross I will stay. I believe in a hill called Mount Calvary. I believe whatever the cost, and when time was surrendered and earth is no more, I'll still cling to that old rugged cross. I believe that we start with His great mysteries. Surely someday will come to an end. Faith will conquer the darkness and death, and will lead me at last to my friend. I believe in a hill called Mount Calvary. I believe whatever the cost, and when time has surrendered and earth is no more, I'll still cling to that old rugged cross. Hello everyone, once again this is Elijah David. We're going to bring you this morning, continue our series. I believe it's number 10 on David's everlasting kingdom. Working from my compilation of my book. What we're going to do, is we're going to show you a little something here on the parabolic time clock. And what you're seeing here in front of you, I know you can't see it too well. So we're going to get a zoom in here on this and show you as much as you can, and then I will be putting bigger numbers on here. But this is a 24-hour time clock showing 3 different times. You had the Roman time. Now, ironically, the Roman time had the hours right in their place. They just shifted numbers but they showed where the sun came up here at the first hour in Roman time. I'm talking about pagan Rome, that's a call. The Pharisees had it right too, the Jews. They started the first hour of the daylight right here, just like I have done. And I'll put that number 1 there, as you can see, right here, in the place of the 12th. I did the same thing that Rome did. I did the same thing that the Jews did. Because they had a time clock that they went by back then. And they had it right. But now, in the Roman time, they started the midnight here at the 7th hour. They called it the first hour, but they started at the right time. And when they closed out the 6 hours from midnight to the first hour of daylight, they had it right. They counted 6 hours. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then they started the first hour of the day as the 7th hour. And consequently they have 12 noon as midday. And modern time has the same thing. Except modern time, right here in the middle, they start the noon here at 12 going this way, whereas Roman time they start the noon as 12 here going this way. This is what I do. I shifted the numbers back 1. Rome never did shift them forward, and the Hebrews never did shift them forward. It's just modern time did. So when you have, they thought to change times and laws, Daniel 7:25, and that's what you're dealing with. This modern time did not come into focus until 538 AD, when the man of sin came into power with the ecclesiastical Rome and the Catholic Church, and they started ruling the world and all over all the churches. And so they changed the times and laws. That's what they did. And so they have modern time, they have the 6th hour of the night starting right here at the first daylight hour. And then they say 6, 7 for the 2nd hour, 8 for the 3rd hour, 9 for the 4th hour, 10 for the 5th hour, 11 for the 6th hour, and then ended right here at 12. And then the 12, they give it the first hour of the afternoon. But the 12 is supposed to have the last hour of the morning. Do you get the point? So, now Jeff White and company in Africa, we love you all. You're doing a great work there. Appreciate you. And pay close attention when I hold my black wand across this clock here. You have 12 hours framed out here from this wand right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, like I said before, Roman time had it right. It's modern time didn't have it right. And keep in mind that modern time was invented by the advancement of Rome. Rome is the one that through their second phase of that beast, Rome was the 4th beast, a dinosaur beast, and the 4th beast had a first phase in him, which was ecclesiastical Rome, and we call that the 5th beast. He's the one that changed the time, so he was just a continuation of Rome. But Rome had it right, clear up to 538 AD, and then his second phase of Rome changed it and moved the hours up 1 hour. Moved up 1 hour. Now think about it. Today we have on our clocks on the wall, it shows 1 o'clock, and so that's enough said about that. Let's just pull this off of here now and go back to the parabolic time clock by the BT Harlot. And all I did was move these numbers back one to match what the Hebrews had always done from the time they came into being. And the Hebrews was following the time that was started at the Garden of Eden. Time has never changed until 538 AD. So now, what the Roman time is today, in modern time, I still call it Roman time now, ecclesiastical Rome's time. And so when we have daylight savings time every year. You spring forward 1 hour in the spring and you fall backwards 1 hour in the fall. So what happens when you spring forward 1 hour in the spring? You move the numbers up one notch. You start the hour an hour earlier. Start the daylight. In other words, you start with a number. And so now, what happens is modern time, when it comes to daylight savings time, they move your clock up one notch. And you've already been robbed of 1 hour by virtue of the fact that they had the numbers in the wrong place to begin with. And then they move it up 1 more hour in the springtime, and now they're robbing you of 2 hours of quality time for the working in the daylight hours. Now the world don't realize that, but that's what happens to them. They lose 2 productive hours. And you say, well, how can that be? Because we still start at daylight. Yeah, we do. But when you start counting correct time, the 12th hour will flow over into the first hour of the daylight. And this clock gets moved forward. And so when you start counting prophetic time, then you've lost 1 hour, and that's why V.T. Harlot and Ben Rhodes, his successor, and Burles Johnson, they couldn't count past 11. They said 11 was the last hour. No, the 11th is next to the last hour of the day. And I want to point out something else. Now, when this shorthand is on 1, or like for instance right now the shorthand is on 12. Well, the longhand is on 1. Okay. Let's start the first hour of the day. Let's start with the shorthand being on 1 and the longhand being on 1. Both of them are together. That means they're starting the first hour of the day. The longhand has to go around the clock, a 60-minute journey around the clock to get to the next hour. Whereas the shorthand only has to go from 1 to 2 to get to the next hour. Okay? So now, when the shorthand though gets to the next hour, when it gets to 2, the longhand then will also, the shorthand will be on 1, the longhand will be on 2. I'll explain that sometime later. I'm going to draw up a parabolic time clock, explaining to you. And so, as I was explaining on my email to Jeff White, Stephen, when I was born in 1938, that was my first birthday. Now I'll have, and then my second birthday, a year later, I was 1 year old, but it was my second birthday. I have a birthday coming up in January this year, 2014, Roman time, modern time. And I'll be 76 years old. But that will be my 77th birthday. You get the point? You never start any accounting time until you set things in motion. When you set things in motion, then you You're counting time. And you always start with 1. The first second, the first minute, the first hour, and you have to go that process until you reach 24 full hours, and the 24th hour will show up right here. You'll actually have 24, and the place is 12. You start with 1 here. Your first 12 hours are counted here. 12 right here, 1 hour before sunrise. As soon as that 12th hour is full, you come to number 1. Okay? So this will be, number 1 will actually be the 13th hour of the 24-hour day. Number 2 will be the 14th hour, 15th hour, 16th hour, 17th hour, 18th hour, 19th hour, right here 7. 20th hour at number 8. 21st hour at 9. 22nd hour at 10. Okay, the 22nd hour. And then you'd have the 23rd hour at 11. And you have the 24th hour at 12. And you still have 1 hour of daylight after you hit 24. You get the point? You have to wait till you come to a full 1 o'clock again. And that completes 24 hours of the cycle. I hope that helps everyone to understand a little bit better. So now, when I say that Yahshua, it says that about the 3rd hour he went out and found others standing idle in the marketplace. Now notice he said about the 3rd hour. I believe that's what it says. Let's see if that's right. And he went out about the 3rd hour. He didn't say he went out at the 3rd hour. He said he went out about the 3rd hour. What does that necessarily mean? Sometime in the midst of the 3rd hour, he went out and hired the disciples to work in his vineyard. Because when Yahshua was born, 30 years earlier, that began the 3rd hour. That was the beginning of the 3rd hour. But when he started his ministry at the age of 30, it was right before the 3rd hour was up. Right here. Just right before the 9th hour was up in 1844, that William Miller was working in his 3rd hour of his parabolic time. It was called the 9th hour. He worked the 7th, 8th, and 9th hour. Ellen G. White was a member of the Millerite movement. She got her training in the Millerite movement. And she was called in the 9th hour, about 1840. 4 years before the 9th hour was over. And as soon as the 9th hour was over, she was called at about the 9th hour to work and start the Advent movement at the beginning of the 10th hour. Now, I hope that better answers, because when Yahshua went out about the 3rd hour and hired disciples, they worked for 3.5 years, and then Yahshua was hung on the cross at the 3rd hour of the day, showing that the 3rd hour of the day had come to an end. At number 4, when the 3rd hour come to an end, on that Friday morning, at the 3rd hour when he was hung on the cross, that began your 4th parabolic hour. And that was considered to be 31 AD when that happened. Okay. Now, when Moses started his work here at the 1st hour, he was called and he went down and worked in the 12th hour. He worked in the last parabolic hour of the night. Moses was called to the service in the 12th hour. Because when he went down to Egypt and brought the children of Israel out, they brought them out at the 12th hour. They called midnight, the 6th hour of the night, before the sun came up to start the 1st hour of the day. Okay. So now I want to show you something else. All of your laborers that are called, prophetic laborers that are called to work in the vineyard, are always called in the hour previous to the hour that they take charge of. See, the disciples was not in charge of the third hour. Yahshua was in charge of the third hour. He's a householder. He hires them and trains them at the end of the third hour, about the end of the third hour. So when the fourth hour begins, Yahshua brings the third hour to a close by his crucifixion. Then the disciples are commissioned to take up, where he left off, he goes back to heaven at Pentecost. There at the beginning of the fourth hour, he sends the power of Pentecost, and he empowers the disciples then to assume the role in the fourth hour. All your laborers that are called to work are always called and prepared in the hour before. Alright, let's see if that's not so. William Miller was called in the 6th hour. Alexander Campbell, the Baptist, the fourth reformer, with the doctrine of baptism by the immersion, he commanded the 6th hour. The 6th hour began in 1810 with Alexander Campbell, the fourth reformer, and William Miller was a member of his church. Got his training during the 6th hour. And as soon as the 6th hour came to its full fulfillment, here in 1833, you're looking at number 7. Okay? And so William Miller, he commands the 7th hour, 8th hour, and the 9th hour. And as soon as the 9th hour is over, then L.G. White got her training in the 9th hour. William Miller got his training in the 6th hour, and Alexander Campbell to do his work in the 7th, 8th, and 9th hour. L.G. White gets her training in the 9th hour to do her work in the 10th hour. Willis Johnson works in the 10th hour. He was called in the 10th hour to work in the vineyard with the shepherd's rod. He got his training for 25 years. And then he proved himself worthy, and he was qualified then to take the mantle, the commission, and open up the 11th hour and start it. I worked in the 10th hour. I was a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the 10th hour ended in 1970. I was a member of the Adventist Church, working in the Adventist Church. I was called to work at the starting of the 11th hour with Brother Stephanie Johnson. I worked the whole 11th hour. I got my training during the 11th hour, and so that qualified me then to succeed Brother Johnson. That was the leader of the 11th hour. He had the birthright. That qualified me then to take the mantle and take the 12th hour. And that's the way it works. That's the way it's always worked. Jeff White, I hope that helps you to understand more better. I believe that will clear it up for you. It should clear it up for you. And so, y'all have a good time with that. And meanwhile, I'm going to go back now to my book and to the theme of David's Everlasting Kingdom, Part 10. And we're going to read to you just a few scriptures, though, from Psalm 122. Just about 6 scriptures here, I believe. And it talks about the 6 thrones of judgment. And it's very timely for now, because the 6 thrones of judgment is the thrones that are set up in the house of David and the everlasting kingdom of David, with Yahshua sitting up on the main throne, and the glorious throne, and the 144,000 sit upon 144,000 thrones as well, judging their brethren. For judgment is given unto the saints of the Most High. It says so there in Daniel 7:22. Time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Verse 26 of Daniel 7, it says to take away his dominion and to consume and destroy it until the end. That's the man of sin. That's the beast. That's the Catholic Church. That's modern Rome. That's Babylon. All rolled into one. That's the false prophet goes along, gets overthrown with all of that as well. Okay? The New World Order gets cast into a lake of fire, like Revelation 19:20. Psalms 122, verse 1. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of Yahweh. Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built as a city that is compact together. Whether the tribes go up, the tribes of the Yeshua, unto the testimony of the Israel. What's the testimony of the Israel? Israel is the true name for Jacob when he got his name changed. What's his testimony? That he had 12 sons that were the progenitors of the 144,000 12 tribes. To give thanks unto the name of the Yeshua. So go thank Yeshua. He's the one that made this possible. Because of the blood that he come to shed to redeem the chosen ones. For there are 6 thrones of the judgment. The thrones of the house of the David. There you have it. Pray for the peace of the Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren and companions' sakes I will now say, peace be within thee. Because the house of the Yeshua or Savior, I will seek thy good. Okay, and the prayer thought, that's very conclusive. And so now if we can get back to this compilation of the book that I have, we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. We're still dealing with the parable of Matthew 20 and the 5 groups of laborers. But there's a lot to be understood yet about all of this in our time. And so now, let's see here. Okay. We stopped on page 33 of my book yesterday, the last sermon. And I'm going to do a little review. Just the last page before the one I stopped on. For the Moses is with the spending of the 40 years in the school of the Messiah. For in the keeping of the sheep is with the exchanging of his Egyptian training for the knowledge and wisdom of the great I am. For the Moses is now with the qualification for the leading of the people out of the Egypt. For the Paul is shown that his worldly wisdom derived from the school of the men is harmful and useless in the work of the Messiah. For the apostle declared, and I, brethren, when I came unto you, I came not with the excellency of the speech or of the wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of the Yahweh Elohim. And actually this is a testimony of the Yeshua. Let's get that corrected right now. Testimony of Yeshua is with the spirit of prophecy. It says so in Revelation 19:10. So when you see that word testimony, that is your key right there. That this is talking about Yeshua. Okay. Or the testimony of the Father Yahweh is his son Yeshua. That could very well be used interchangeably there. There's nothing wrong with that. Alright. For I determined not to know anything among you save of the Yeshua Messiah and him crucified, and my speech and my preaching is not with the enticing words of the man's wisdom, but in the demonstration of the Spirit and of the power. That's in 1 Corinthians 2, verse 1, 2, and verse 4. For the Paul meant that he is with the determination for the preaching of the Scriptures, and the Scriptures only, for the revealing of the Messiah, and him crucified. For the preaching is with the power of the Spirit by the Yahweh Elohim, the Father, and not by the wisdom of the man, for the learned apostle stooped down unto the level of the ignorant fisherman in the human knowledge, at the same time while climbing up with the 11 disciples in the divine wisdom, in the comparison for the earthly honor and human greatness sink into the insignificant. Therefore the sacred cannot be mingled with the common, said the householder Yeshua. Go ye also into the vineyard. And as we said before, Isaiah 5:7 says, the vineyard of the Yeshua of the host. The host is your saints. Remember that. Yeshua is the host. And that's Isaiah 5 says, the vineyard of Yahshua of hosts is the fields of Israel all over the world. Okay? And so when you say the marketplace, you're talking about the churches and the headquarters for the house of Israel all over the world. So you also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that shall you receive. For the Yahshua asked men and women to arise and go to work in the vineyard, trusting in the value of his word. Provide neither gold, nor silver, nor brass in your purses, nor scrip for your journey, neither two coats, neither shoes, nor yet stays. For the workman is worthy of his meat, and into whatsoever city or town you shall enter, inquire who in the place is worthy, and there abide till you go thence. Matthew 10, verse 9 to 11. And he said unto them, when I sent you without the person, and scrip, and shoes, lacked you anything? And they said, nothing. Luke 22:35. Okay, we got that corrected. Yes, sure. Mark the following point with the care. From the ending of the 9th hour, 1844, unto the 12th hour. Okay, from the ending of the 9th hour unto the 12th hour. Ending of the 9th hour, right here you start 10. And then you have 3 hours in this quadrant. 10, 11, and 12. Between 10 and 1 o'clock, you have 3 hours recorded. Right between 7 and 10, you have 3 hours recorded. Remember, you have to have 4 numbers. And between those 4 numbers, you will have 3 hours recorded. Remember that. Always count 4 numbers. And count the 3 hours in between the 1st and the 4th here. Count 3 hours between the 4th and the 7th. Count 3 hours between the 7th and the 10th. And count 3 hours between the 10th and the 1. You get the point? And then you will have finished out 12 parabolic hours in the daylight. And then you will have the number 1 to 1. And as the sun goes down on us, it comes up over here, starts a new 12-hour a day for the people on the other side of the world in the daylight. Now you have from 1 to 1 again for them. Okay, that should pretty well explain that now, and I hope so. So let's look at that again. From the ending of the 9th hour, 1844, into the 12th hour, right here, from the end of the 9th here at number 10, until the beginning of the 12th hour, or of the close of the probation. Well, actually, we're talking about at the end of the 12th hour, be here at 1. Let's read that again. From the ending of the 9th parabolic hour, 1844, until the 12th parabolic hour, or the close of probation, there are only 3 full hours for the number of the hours. Symbolically denotes that there's only enough probationary time from the year of 1844, the 9th hour call, until the end for the one movement, the 7th. Okay. 3 hours. Okay. For the scripture here, Revelation 10:6 applies here, that there should be time no longer. Well, you see, beat the house again, see, you can't count past 7. And actually, 7 times 3 is 21. There's 24 hours a day, not 21 hours a day. 8th is your new order. And you find your, yeah, true, Adventists had the 7th dominion. They had the 7th step. They had the 7th movement. But the House of David has the 8th movement in the 12th parabolic hour. Okay. So now, what the deal is, now we have to move all of these numbers back. We can start the first dominion here at number 4. Well, what about right here when Adam had the dominion from the first hour through the fourth, up to the fourth? He had the first 3 hours in the Garden of Eden. What happened? That's your first dominion. So now we got to go and move all these numbers back. Because each dominion has 3 parabolic hours to occupy on your prophetic time card. And now you're witnessing something new here, folks. I've been waiting for this to develop, to show this to you on camera and on your CDs. So now I'm going to have to move all these numbers back. Put number 1 right here. Well, here's where number 1 is. Put number 1 with number 1. Put number 2 with number 2, the second dominion. 3 goes right here. 4 goes right here. 5 goes right here. 6 goes right here. And 7 goes right here. And William Miller's time slot. Okay. And the 8th goes right here, and the last 3 parabolic hours, and now you have 8 times 3 is 24, filling out the full 24-hour day. Think about it, folks. This is why we call ourselves progressive. All these things have to be straightened out. And for you folks that are following these sermons, and actually I'm going to zoom it up here now and show you there's something here. If I can do it. And zoom it back a little bit. This is what you're seeing right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8. 8 between 1844 and 2000 no, at the close of probation. Here at 1. This is your 8th dominion. Now you see, this is what got everybody confused with V.T. Holler himself, saying, well, the Adventist has the 7th dominion, the 7th step. Yeah, she was the 7th church, all right. Let her see it. Okay. But she didn't have the 7th dominion. William Miller had the 7th dominion. Okay. Well, 7, 7. You've got to keep the numbers aligned. So now, Brother Johnson says in 1970, we're the 11th hour Adventist Remnant Church, so he says we're in the last hour, and we have all 7s given to us. Yeah. Brother Johnson has all 7s. Ellen G. White had all 6s. V.T. Hollip had all 6s in the 10th hour. Brother Johnson had all 6s when he worked in the 10th hour. But when he stepped into the 11th hour, but keep in mind now, Brother Johnson was operating under the 10th hour call. So he was answering the 10th hour call when he accepted the call to head up the 11th hour. He's only answering the 10th hour call. So he was not called an 11th hour laborer. He was called a 10th hour laborer, qualifying him to work in 2 hours, 10th hour and the 11th hour. I joined him in the 11th hour, qualified me, and I worked in the 11th hour and the 12th hour. That's another thing. These prophetic people that are called to head up a movement, they always get the opportunity to work 2 parabolic hours on the parabolic time clock. That's your leader. Not necessarily his helpers, because the leader is the householder. And as soon as he starts his work, he's commanded to go hire laborers to work with him in his vineyard. So the Spirit sends him laborers, preordained, to work with the householder. So actually, those laborers get credit for working in the hour that they were hired in. So I was hired to begin the 11th hour. Even though I was in the Adventist church in the 10th hour, I wasn't really working because they didn't hire me. But the 11th hour Adventist hired me, Brother Johnson. I worked the whole 11th hour, and he became disgruntled, dissatisfied with my service, because I would line up with his wife, and believing those lies she tried to perpetrate upon me for 20 years. And they were serious lies, and she convinced him that they were true, and so he insisted that I acknowledge those lies as the truth and come into unity with the church, just to keep us out of unity. And so that lie started in 1976 and ended in 2002 with my departure from Gilead Stand. All right, enough said about that. Let us go back now to, let's just zoom back here. Let's zoom back down. Okay. Well, let's zoom back up just a little bit here. So it says, from the end of the 9th hour, 1844, unto the 12th hour, or of the close of the probation, at the end of the 12th hour, there are only 3 full hours. All right, that's true. 10th hour, 11th hour, and 12th hour. You got to wait for the 12th hour to be over here at the 1. That makes you 3 full hours. Okay. For the number of the hours symbolically denotes that there's only enough probationary time from the year 1844, the 9th hour call, until the end for the 1 movement. Now this is V.T. Holliff talking. I'm just quoting V.T. Holliff, folks. And the 7th, 3 hours. For the scripture, Revelation 10:6 applies here, that there should be time no longer. So here V.T. Holliff comes along telling these Adventists, you're the 4th group in 9th hour call laborers. I'm the 5th group. I'm the one called in Matthew 20 verse 6 at the 11th hour. You was called at the 9th hour. I'm called here at the 11th hour. V.T. Holliff saw that. He saw it in the purple of Matthew 20. He believed he was the 11th hour call laborer. He believed he was that 5th group. He believed that the Adventists was the 4th group. That's why he was writing all these things to them, telling them that they were the 7th. Okay. But the thing is, they were all 6s. How do we prove that? Laodicea was the 6th Reformed church from Martin Luther. Starting with the 2nd church of the 7 candlesticks in the 7 churches of Asia. Martin Luther commanded the 2nd church. John Knox commanded the 3rd church. John Wesley, Methodist, commanded the 4th church. Alexander Campbell, the Baptist, 1810, at the 6th hour commanded the 5th church. The 5th church. And William Miller, in 1833, commanded the 6th church, and Ellen G. White commanded the 7th church. But that was the 6th movement. That was the 6th step of the movement. Now keep that in mind. The 6 doctrines that those 6 reformers taught, starting with Martin Luther in 1500, commanded the last 6 churches of the 7. Because Paul had the 1st church back in the 1st century, Ephesus. You get the point? So Ellen G. White is the 7th church, but she's the 6th called reformer in 1844. But the doctrine of the 3 angels' messages exclusively and nothing else. She was shown the 4th and 5th angel, that it would join the 3 angels one day. And she said at the time of its fulfillment, we'll no doubt better understand those 2 angels, and there'll be messages of prayer, and they will join the 3 angels. But she said how soon she didn't know when it passed from the judgment of the dead to the living. So when it passed from the judgment of the dead of the 3 angels, they join the 2 angels, and that's when it passes to the judgment of the living. That didn't happen until 2002. Brother Johnson said it happened in 1970. Not so. He said he had all 7. Well, now I'm going to correct that again. And Brother Johnson published all 7. He said, well, we came on the scene in 1970. There's your first 7. He said we had all the 7 major feast days, starting with the 7-day Sabbath. And he said, we had the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets. And we had the 7th step of the genuine movement, and we had and we're in the 7th dominion. So he just named 7, 7, 7, 7, 7s. Until he just run out of 7s. He was all 7. And in essence, he was all 6s. He was all 6s. All he was doing was giving the privilege and the birthright in the firstborn to raise up to be the progenitor of the righteous line and raise up the 12 sons of the child of Jacob. If he could learn to follow the pattern and become sanctified and purified by the restoration of the sanctuary system and put into full operation with all the statutes and judgment precepts and so forth restored unto it as well. And he did. He restored all statutes and precepts unto the sanctuary. And that was a sacred name, was one of them. And that is also the dated, number 2. And the forgiveness article, Matthew 18, and the health reform. Okay. And then he restored all the additional annual and seasonal feast days to the 7-day Sabbath. So he said, well, we have all 7s, folks. It's obvious. Yeah, he was given the pattern. The pattern for who? Elijah David to succeed. And so I inherited all those 7s from Brother Johnson right here in 2002. At the beginning of the 12th Tabernacle College over there. I inherited them because this is when all the 7s made to come into fruition. In other words, this is when all the 7s matured and came into fruition. Brother Johnson developed all the 7s from 1970 to 2003. But he was carrying and maintaining all of the 6s because he didn't become sanctified and purified during that period of time that he was carrying all of these 7s. Now, if he had become sanctified and purified and delivered his congregation up to the victory in 2002, all of us, and that we remained united together and moved on into the 12th hour, then he can say, well, I started with the 7 steps here in 1970, and I brought them to maturity here in 2002. And then now we move into the 8th, the new order. He'd been able to see all that. But that didn't happen, and so I stepped into the 12th hour and inherited all the 7. And I recognize the 7th grain of doctrine that goes with those 6 grains that Brother Johnson inherited from Sister White and V.T. Harley and Ben Rhodes. See, Brother Johnson inherited those 6 grains of doctrine found in that vessel in Ezekiel 4:9. So what are we learning, folks? We're learning that number 8 actually starts in 1844. Okay. So, the number 1 starts in the Garden of Eden at the first day of creation. First second, first minute, first hour of the first day of the 24-hour day, you started the first dominion. Okay, you don't start the first dominion when the second dominion comes on. No. But now, William Miller occupied, Adam and Eve occupied the time period in 2 time periods. And their descendants occupied the first 6 hours for about a time. Okay. So in that case, then you could say the first dominion extended up to here, all right. Okay. But, okay, then if you want to do that, you can say the first dominion started here and it ended right here. Okay, that's a possibility. And then you can say the second dominion started with Enoch. He was the 7th from Adam. He was the 7th generation from Adam. So he started right, and here's where Enoch started, right here. At the end of the 6th parabolic hour in his day, and at the 7th hour, correlating with William Miller in 1833. Corresponding, paralleling. So let's just say Enoch had the second dominion. Let's just say that The third dominion was right here, where Beachy House got it, as well. And the fourth dominion is right here, where he's got it. And the fifth dominion is right here. And the sixth dominion is right here, between William Miller and Ellen G. White. And this may make a lot of sense, because William Miller is the sixth church, Philadelphia. Okay. So now, Ellen G. White inherited all of his teachings and all of his doctrines, especially the 2300-day doctrine, so she inherited all sixes from him. But this last three periodic hours has two groups of laborers that come to work. And we know that David is number 8. He was the 8th born son of his family. So let's just divide the last 3 hours up then. Let's divide the last 3 hours up, the 10th, 11th, and the 12th hour into 2 dominions. So let's just say the Adventists did have the 7th dominion. Let's just say that Brother Johnson inherited that. And that's what he taught. Okay. Then you'd have to divide this last 3 hours up with 2 dominions. This is uncharacteristic with the first 6 dominions. First 6 dominions occupied 3 parabolic hours. So now, if you want to count the first dominion as starting with Adam when he fell into sin, then that's a possibility. So, your first dominion starts here at the beginning of the 4th hour with Adam, after he goes out into the world, out of the Garden of Eden. Well, what about the first period of time of creation? You still got to count it. You got to count those 3 hours, because you have 8 of these 3-hour sections. And 8 times 3 is 24. So, let's just say the first half of Adam's dominion was spent in the Garden of Eden, parabolically, for 33.5 years. He being the first Adam, he'd had to live a perfect life for 33.5 years. So he'd be a type of Yahshua that spent his 33.5 years here on earth living a perfect life. So now Adam and Eve and his descendants get the second half of the number 1 would go right here between 4, 5, and 4 and 7. Those 3 parabolic hours. And he started his work right here at the 7th hour, and he worked in the 7th, 8th, and 9th hour. Noah was called to start his work in the 9th hour, and he worked for 120 years building a ship to save the world. And when the 9th hour was over, Noah stepped into the 10th parabolic hour. The 10th parabolic hour was the flood. It was a cutting off period. Cutting off the 9 and starting the 10th was at the flood. So when Noah came out of the ark, he was working in the 10th hour. And he worked on, and his descendants worked the 10th and the 11th hour, clear up to the 12th hour. Moses was called to work in the 12th hour to start his training, and he worked the 12th and the 1st hour. Moses' descendants worked in the 2nd hour and the 3rd hour. Because the Pharisees at the cross were the descendants of Moses. And the children of Israel come out of Egypt. So the children of Israel occupied the first 3 parabolic hours of the daylight. 1, 2, 3. And the Pharisees were right up there. As a matter of fact, they're the ones that they very much on the scene when Yahshua hung on the cross at the beginning of the 4th hour. And Yahshua was called in the Old Testament. He's born in the Old Testament. He was a descendant of the house of David, and the Pharisees were the house of David, in charge of the house of David. Okay, so there you have it. And then the disciples and the reformers worked the next 1800 years in the 4th, 5th, and 6th hour. Alexander Campbell, the Baptist, 1810, occupying the 6th hour up to 1833. Showing where exactly 1800 years. From 34 AD to 1833 AD. That's 1800 years. That the disciples and reformers worked in those 3 parabolic hours. William Miller worked in the 3 parabolic towers, 1844 to 1833 to 1844, 7, 8, and 9. And then the last 2 groups of laborers, the 4th group, the Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists, and the 5th group, the Mount Zion, the 12th hour Elijah David. He's with the occupying then of the last parabolic tower, the number 8 movement. We spent just about a whole hour, folks, going through all this now, and it was worth reviewing and getting us started. I hope you understand what we're talking about all through it. We looked at the 7 dominions 2 different ways. As Adam occupying the first half of the first dominion in the Garden of Eden, and the second half outside the Garden of Eden up to Enoch, the 7th removed generation from Adam. All right, this brings a close. Let's do this hour. We're getting close, and we just got about a minute left here. And we're going to wrap it up here. What a friend we have in Joshua. Will be our closing hymnal. What a friend we have in Joshua. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a pebble is to carry everything to Him in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to Joshua in prayer. Every trials and temptation is a trouble anywhere. We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Joshua in prayer. And we find a friend so faithful, who will all our sorrows share. Joshua knows on every weakness. Take it to the Joshua in prayer. Oh, we weak and heavy laden, cumbered with the load of care. Precious Savior, still our refuge. Make it to Joshua in prayer. Who the French despise forsake.